A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this 132nd edition of the Together for Education webinars brought to you by Notebook. More than a year back, in April 2020, when the pandemic had just started, we at Notebook felt that it was our responsibility to put together a platform where educators like yourselves could connect, discuss various problems that you're facing with this quickly capturing ongoing epidemic and pandemic, and we saw an opportunity to create a forum where educators could discuss and arrive at solutions to the various issues that they were facing. Well, little did we know that more than a year later, I would be inviting you all to the 132nd episode. We have discussed a wide range of topics. We have discussed extremely curricular topics, the extracurricular, the co-curricular, even topics like mental health. Today, however, we discuss a topic that goes right to the core of the education system, that is creating future citizens, deciding what society tomorrow would look like, and that is dignity of labor. Something that India, to be very honest, is not very well known for. Labor is something that is very, very intrinsic to anything that we do. A lot of you might know that I personally started my career in construction. And early on, the first question that we came across was, why are there so many colors of helmets? There is an internationally understood color code when it comes to helmets of workers at a site. The white is for the engineer, the blue is for the supervisor, the red is for the electricians, the green is for the safety engineers, and the yellow are for the laborers. The brightest, the most easily spotted, and perhaps the king of the place, the laborers. However, in today's society, are we still aware of that dignity of labor? Has it improved in the last 10 years, or has it not? Today, to answer all these questions, we have some wonderful speakers and a great panel lined up for you. The first speaker for the topic today is Mr. Philip Barrett. Mr. Barrett retired as the Deputy Headmaster from the illustrious Doon School in Dehradun after 44 years of serving in education across various institutions. Mr. Barrett served the Doon School as Housemaster, Head of Department, Dean of Activities, Dean of Student Welfare, Deputy Headmaster, Second Master, and Acting Headmaster with great distinction. He also carried out a visioning exercise for the Doon School in the year 2011 through an in-depth study of a number of British public schools and various schools in the US. He qualified as a leadership trainer at Wellington College, UK in the year 2000. He is also an athlete, an adventurer, and a naturalist, and we at Notebook are privileged to have him as our senior advisor. Sir, thank you so much for being here. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Shubayu. I hope I'm audible and partly visible.
Perfectly, sir. Thank you.
I didn't know about those colored helmets. You were the first person to actually make me aware of that. And thank you so much. And a very good evening to you, Achin, Abhishek, Gagori, Meghna, all those in Notebook in Calcutta, our esteemed panelists today, and our guests. My brush with what a loss of dignity looks like was about a few months ago when I encountered a poor man, obviously a menial daily wages worker, and his son. They were looking in on a sweet shop, rather expensive Indian sweet shop, and they were looking at the menu on the board outside, just to sort of, take away the things that they couldn't afford, and by a process of elimination, ask for what they could. Then they ordered some cholas, only to be shooed away by a rather rude proprietor. That's the time I stepped in, and I asked him, I said, are you aware, are you afraid that they can't pay you? Or are you afraid that their rags might drive away some of your richer customers? In the end of what happened was I decided to pay for them. I asked them, I said, what do you want to eat? They're very straight about it. They said, we want to eat cholas and some rotis. I ordered it, paid it, and I walked off. I admired the pride of the poor man. He didn't beg. He might have had a little money. And it was this pride and dignity that I most respected in him, and which I despised in the proprietor was his arrogance and the fact that he can look down upon people who do a job. I think dignity is what we need more than money. Money may make us rich, but dignity is what makes us human. I think simply put, all jobs are to be given the respect that, you know, uh, that only few jobs seem to be given. You know, a lawyer or an engineer, you know, might be seen as more valuable than a municipal sweeper or a plumber. But we need both. We need the lawyer and we need the plumber. Um, and we need the architect to build our homes. We need the doctor. We need the general merchants around the corner. But we also need the laborers, the cleaners, the cooks, the drivers, the workmen, the skilled and unskilled worker, the cobbler, the tailor, the mason. What would we do without these people helping us, even though they don't command the salaries of some of the white collar workers? Now, it's just that some of us have been more fortunate in having a better start to life, while others haven't been lucky. We went to colleges and schools. Many of us have money that we inherited from our parents, land and property. There are people who have not been so fortunate as us and did not have the education in maths and, you know, Western science, and had to catch up. If many of these worker poor children who have their little kids on rubbish heaps and construction sites while they build the skyscrapers for the rich, if many of these children had the opportunity of going to schools, they might have outscored the metro kids by a long way. Why is it, as Shubhayu mentioned, why is it that dignity of labor is seen more in the West than in India? And I think it might boil down to the caste system, where, you know, our society was divided into those who, you know, by work, those who did the higher types of jobs were separated from the untouchables who did the cleaning of the toilets, the menial jobs. And this caste divide, even though it has to some extent been eroded, it still exists. One looks down upon certain jobs and one extols a lot of the other jobs. A lot of parents would want their children to be doctors, engineers, architects, lawyers, but would frown upon them if they wanted to be artists or, you know, musicians or dramatists. Even in England, there's a working class who take the lowly jobs, and there is the landed gentry who lived in the manors and the estates and who could afford and can still afford domestic help, horse handlers, cooks, butlers, drivers, estate wardens, gamekeepers. And the sons of the rich who went to Oxford and Cambridge would not ever think of taking up a job of housekeeping or shopkeeping because they did not have to, and because there were others to do these jobs. And then when the West Indians came into England in the 40s and 50s, and of course later the Indians and the Bangladeshis in the 60s and 70s, they took over all the menial jobs that the British working class were doing. And of course, the Britishers resented this. But the same Indian who turned up his noses at cleaning floors in India willingly took over the cleaning jobs in Heathrow. Heathrow was totally cleaned and swapped and swept by Indians. Then where is their dignity of labor when they go abroad? It's only here. Eventually, it boils down to money. Jobs that bring in more salaries and for which there was more expensive training, like the law or engineering degrees, in Test cricket would be more venerated than jobs that were paid less. In India, I must say, it's a country where teachers are respected. You know, they refer to us as Masterji, even though it is poorly paid. Yet it is looked down upon, even though they respect it, it's looked down upon, but not in Bhutan and not in Finland, where the, you know, teachers are given the highest dignity. They get the salaries which are on par with government executives, top government executives. Now, I think one of the things is that well-to-do parents have to convey the idea that what happens is that well-to-do people convey the idea that the father has enough and the children don't have to work. Even wives are prevented from working because people will, you know, frown upon it. So a man whose wife doesn't work and whose children are, you know, driven about and chauffeur driven, it's his status that is at stake. In poor families, they all have to work. They all have to bring in the money. and therefore they will do anything. There's more dignity over there. And while it is okay for parents to give children the best they can, they must also teach them the values of respect and gratitude. Gratitude for the people who work to make their lives more comfortable. Making children believe that all people and work is important, and some people have to do what we want them to do, must be supported by parents and the school. There are many famous and rich people I've been reading about who have decided against giving their children the feeling, oh, because the parents are rich, the children can have a cushy life and inherited wealth. People like Gordon Ramsay, Daniel Craig, the actor, Richard Branson, they fly business class, but their children are in economy. They want to make their children understand that if you want to get up in life, you're going to do it yourself. You cannot gloat over your father's BMW or Mercedes. You haven't earned it. And that's your father's earning. Even the father might have inherited it. We should instill in our children dignity for labor by the way in which we talk to people. We talk down to certain people, certain jobs. We reach down to them. And people from a higher strata, we would dare not talk to them like that. How do we speak to our gardeners and our gatekeepers? Children are not born to discriminate between rich and poor, the haves and the have-nots, between the white collar and the blue collar jobs. At heart, children treat people equally. They even play their servant's kid if they're allowed to. But it is the parents' thinking, the adult thinking, that contaminates the child. You hear things like, don't play with colored folk, don't play with the Jews, don't play with South Indians, or whatever the bias of the parent might be, is transferred to the children. And that's where children learn. Now, at the Doon school, 1st of May was a very important day. The children, all the boys, we got together and had a ceremony. Gifts were given to every worker on the campus. And believe me, we had a lot of them, to honor the hundreds of electricians, cooks, gardeners, who made the lives of the boys very, very, fruitful. And they couldn't live without it. Gandhi Jayanti on the 2nd of October, usually, we had a community lunch where the boys and staff cooked for the entire worker community. And we had shifts where we served our support staff on the ground, on mats, simple fare, one vegetable, little dal, puris and aloo. But it was a token that where it is traditional in school, where we served the people who worked for us. Now, the other concept I was talking about is the gap year. Now, abroad, after school or even after college, children take gap years. They go off to a third world country, they go off to Europe, they go to South America, and they work on farms, they work as teachers, and they make a little pocket money for the coming years in college or university. In India, I find this missing. Children move from school straight into college, from college straight into a job. There is no tarrying, there's no relaxation, there's no trying to get more travel, more experience, meeting people. Again, it's all to do with money. The faster you can earn, the richer you will be. Yes, rich financially, but poor in experience. And these children they will move from school to college, college to work, work to marriage, and then they'll probably expect a dowry after that. Summer jobs. How many of our children are open to doing summer jobs, serving at McDonald's, serving at restaurants, in coffee shops? No, they will look down. This will all be looked down upon. A rich kid's son will not think of driving a cab to make a little money. A gardener's son, Mali's son, of course, he will do it. Will we work as a carpenter? No. But will we want to work in IKEA, the Swedish giant? Yes, we'd work in IKEA because there's more status involved there. But who's making the stuff for IKEA? Probably a Chinese carpenter. Now, community service, working with the downtrodden, is one of the best ways a school and parents can actually inculcate a sense of dignity of labor. The Doon School was a part of the Round Square group of schools, which is a large family of schools, which believed in the philosophy of Kurt Hahn. the German educationist and philosopher. And we used to have our kids going to international service projects all over the world, into the third world, digging wells, building houses. All of us teachers, including me, have actually got our hands dirty with cement and mud and actually built stuff for the people who couldn't afford it. Teachers and parents working alongside workers and their children, very important. Summer jobs. I think it's important to move kids into summer jobs. We even had two boys in Doon school who actually decided incognito to work a day with that minimum wages that came out by the government some years ago, a paltry 76 rupees. And nobody knew that they were Doon school boys, they were senior boys. And they worked in a tea shop in the village and they survived a day and they wrote an article and they addressed the school on how people live on this much money and to understand they had the experience of living in poverty. I think we also need to teach our children that using parental wealth and flaunting it as their own is not on. What is your own is what you do for yourself, what you make for yourself, not your father's car. I think every person is entitled to be treated with dignity. How you speak to people, how we treat them shows dignity. Even if we refuse to give alms to a mendicant, a beggar, it's the way we do it. The way you can show respect by folding your hands and saying, I don't want to give you. But to toss a coin at him would not be showing respect for him. I think there are so many things schools can do and parents at home can do to inculcate a spirit of dignity for all walks of life and not just extol the virtues of, let's say, some jobs over others. I think it is incumbent on the school and all of us teachers to be role models, to set examples and to lead our children, because tomorrow we don't know what jobs are there for our children. We don't know what the future of schooling is. And therefore we need to be able to take up anything we want, because I think there's money in everything. And where your heart is, that's where you need to follow. And I want to thank you for listening to me, giving me a hearing. And I want to hand this back to Shubayu. Thank you very much, Shubayu.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for sharing your thoughts and those wonderful examples of how several of your boys undertook such projects to understand what laborers or people in a certain strata of society actually go through on a day-to-day basis. Quite the experience, I must say. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is Achin Bhattacharyya. Achin is the founder and CEO at Notebook. A chartered accountant by training, Achin was a director at Deloitte prior to starting Notebook. He has worked in India and abroad in various senior capacities in GE, PwC, KPMG, and Deloitte. Achin is a fellow of the ICAI and a member of CPA Australia and CPA Ireland. He is also the recipient of the prestigious Indian Achievers Award. Achin is an avid reader and a passionate traveler with keen interests in economics, history, literature, and philosophy. He is a regular speaker at various forums and chambers of commerce and also contributes articles to numerous publications regularly. He is also on the board of some of the most renowned corporates and contributes significantly to their brand strategies. Achin, over to you.
Good evening, everyone. Am I audible?
Yeah, Achin, loud and clear.
I once again welcome all of you to today's session. I think on a very relevant topic. Both the father of our nation, Mahatma Gandhi, and Martin Luther King Jr. promoted dignity of labor. Gandhiji once said, a plea for the spinning wheel is a plea for recognizing the dignity of labor. In 1968, there was a sanitation workers' strike, one of the biggest strikes that US had faced till date. And Martin Luther King Jr. met a crowd of sanitation workers. And his exact words were, to quote him, "But let me say to you tonight, that whenever you are engaged in work that serves humanity and is for the building of humanity, it has dignity and it has worth. Now, the strike this took place in Tennessee, which is among the most southern states that registered the trend towards legalizing public unions. And the city hired sanitation workers as day laborers without any benefits or job security. Subsequently, King's assassination in Memphis stilled the resolve of those striking workers he was there to address, to support, and they went on to win their struggle. Now, very recently, I saw a very wonderful book on this particular subject: Image, Work, and Identity in the Roman World. This is the first book to present an analysis of the images of working people in Roman society and to interpret their meaning and significance. So this unique historical perspective, which really goes on to, prove the entire evolution of dignity of labor and the way it has always been valued across the world. And the book has a very unique take on what did work mean to the Romans. A very recent book released in January 21. Interestingly, the chapters are broken down by occupational groups. Like, for instance, chapter 1 deals with those who build the city: architects, manual workers, masons, blacksmiths. It also touches on the respective deities that were rendered in the art that these workers felt a kinship with, such as Minerva for weaving and craftsmanship, Pythagoras for those who work with fire because he gave mankind fire. Chapter 2 deals with images of those who fed the city: bakers, millers, butchers. In this chapter, and each and every occupation being given due importance, given due pride of place, being explained with equal care. And the author discussed at length the meaning behind the famous poem of Ulysses the baker. It goes on to show that each and every occupation, how important they were in building a city, in building a civilization. Stories of a foregone era. Moving on, chapter 3 moves on to those who clothe the city and the cultural importance of textiles, textile trade, and its various representations in art, including leather worker, fillers, shoemakers. And clothing was especially important in Roman society. It really signaled one's identity. Chapter 4 deals with metal workers and discusses the importance of the trade that equipped Rome's armies and one of the most highly respected and admired crafts. The author briefly talks about the delicate subject of the use of child workers in mining and the rare depictions and inscriptions of this line of work: goldsmiths, jewelers, coppersmiths, and those who did the important and strenuous job of working in Roman mint were also covered in this chapter. Chapter 5 is an interesting turn in that it moves to the discussion of maker's marks with a focus on pottery and glass. Chapter 6 is about empires on the move, deals with shipbuilders, wagon makers, wine merchants, those who traveled and helped build transportation for trade. And wrapping up the text, the last few chapters are dedicated to the subject of allegory in labor art, working communities, such as occupational associations, women's work, gender bias in representation, and lastly, the surge of freedmen and women who proudly displayed their professional identities through the artwork and inscription that adorn their funerary monuments. Now, while the book provides a cursory overview of workshops, working conditions, societal perceptions, the type of tools, that one way of looking at it. But it's also an excellent resource for understanding how individual workers forged their identities and asserted agency through their representation in art. How each and every person in the society went on to join their hands and build a marvelous civilization. So today's topic, when I look at a topic like this, and there are multiple perspectives of looking at it. We often say, for instance, we often read about work culture in different civilizations, different countries. Recently, I was reading about Japanese workers expressing their dissatisfaction with their management by working an hour extra every day. So that's their way to protest, by working an extra hour for which they're not paid. Now contrast this with the behavior of workers, our own workers. We find a difference, but the question is, why so? Are the workers alone to be blamed for this? Do each one of us who are more privileged by birth, I think Burrett referred to this beautifully, do we all really truly value the workers as equals or as lesser mortals? Are people in positions of power and privilege, do they ensure that workers never lose sight of this fact? The results are predictable. All hell breaks loose when workers get a chance to get back at their bosses. Now, no wonder the top bosses in Indian companies were scandalized. Say, for instance, when the management at the Maruti Suzuki plant adopted the Japanese concept of social equality between everyone working at the plant, you know what happened was that the real attitude of, and also I think very recently, during last 15, 16 months, 18 months that we've seen, during the worst humanitarian crisis, we have seen the struggle of migrant workers all over the country. We have seen the challenges that they have faced. People who have built our homes, people who have built our roads, people who build our factories, our shopping malls, our movie theaters. We have seen how they really struggled for basics. So these are questions that I think we as a society need to ask ourselves. Abraham Lincoln once said, labor is prior to and independent of capital. Capital is only the fruit of labor and could never have existed if labor had not first existed. Labor is the superior of capital and deserves much the higher consideration. These were exactly his words. So teaching a child concept like dignity of labor is challenging. Undoubtedly, it's very challenging, but you'd all agree that it's very necessary. NEP, I think, has taken a step in the right direction. As we all esteemed educators in this forum must have seen, provisions about apprenticeship, etc., are a step in the right direction. At least the intent is very good, undoubtedly. Of course, while implementing them, naturally, it will have its own set of challenges, but the intent is firmly in place. So, if we try to enhance dignity of labor and try to ensure that we ingrain the right set of values in our children, to promote a sense of community service amongst our students, few basic things which I'm sure all of us would agree. I think first is leading by example. Undoubtedly, the way we treat maybe our domestic helps at in our home, I think it goes a long way, the kind of signals we send. Today's children would not shy away from calling out hypocrisy. So I think as a society, we need to make sure that we practice what we preach. Using Again, respectable terms to address workers. We were discussing about Western society, we were discussing about dignity of labor. I believe as a country, our civilization, our value system is second to none. Of course, we have all the right set of values in place. It's just a question of ensuring that they're implemented. So how do we address them? It has always been in Indian culture to respect elders. I remember early in my career, once walking into my first job, and I saw a gentleman much elder than me at the gate. Somebody from the security standing up. And as a human being, I felt ashamed that day. I really felt ashamed. So I think these are things that we really need to self-introspect, ask ourselves. Can we make our support staff feel more comfortable? Terms like please, sorry, whatever the language, it's not about ensuring that we use English at home. I think Indian languages are second to none, very beautiful languages. But the right set of, are we communicating the right set of values? Are our children thankful enough if they're having a privileged upbringing? A mindset shift, which I think is very important. Very important to teach our children that there's no shame in an honest living by working hard. People often associate physically intense jobs as menial and unimportant. But I think this calls for a mindset shift. Mahatma Gandhi once said, again, if I take the liberty to quote him, and I think Gandhiji's words are so meaningful, so intense. He said, he who does not labor and yet eats, he who does not labor and yet eats stolen food. I think self-explanatory and very appropriate. Also, I think since we have so many esteemed educators in this program, and of course these things are being done. When I speak to teachers, when I speak to principals, I see so much happening in this particular direction. I think there's been a sea change in attitude of people. So the way certain things are communicated. For instance, if it's a civics class and we are discussing labor laws before Labor Day, talking about the significance and importance of such a day. At times, maybe asking children to do a small play in front of the school to share their learning. Maybe an environmental sciences teacher, while discussing recycling, open the conversation to discuss about informal workers in the sector and how they make our lives so much easier. Starting a debate on how things can be made easier and better for them by teaching every household to sort out their garbage, dry garbage, wet garbage. Small things, but so important. Maybe in history, while discussing about the dark chapters of history, slave trade that we have seen in Western societies, so as to ensure children understand how far we have come as a society. I think also the importance of being thankful enough, which is so important, which I think only an educator or a parent can teach, because a children essentially only looks up to their parents and teachers the most, I'll say. COVID-19 lockdown, although it has come with its own set of struggle, I think it really forced a lot of households to do their own work, to do their own chores at home without the support of house help. So I think at least from that particular perspective, children have seen that. In many households, children, of course, they have helped. And they have an impressionable mind. It is important that if they inculcate with the right values from an early age, right mindset, they'll be greatly influenced by their behavior. Senator Kamala Harris, I was just reading a news article a few days back, I remember, I think 2 weeks back. She argued at a town hall in South Carolina recently. And this was about teachers. Her whole argument was that teachers should be paid better and respected more. And she concluded by saying, labor has dignity, and we have got to give it the dignity of the work that is being performed, referring to the contribution of teachers and how dignified the work is, and the skills that go into that work. I think the most touching aspect, when we discuss something about dignity of labor, how each and every work is important. We have seen millions of homemakers across our nation who have sacrificed their own careers to bring up children, who have never been a part of the formal workforce, who have never been paid, but their contribution is second to none. Their contribution in raising their children is never second to their husbands, and we would all agree to that. Even today, when we see professionals, mostly mothers, taking extended maternity leaves very often without being paid, maybe taking a few years off to bring up children, and then at times struggling, facing challenges and coming back to workforce and again rejoining. But if you look at their contribution towards building of our nation, undoubtedly we would all salute them, we would all respect them. And I think this is the highest example of how each and every work, how important it is and how dignified it is. Recently, I was reading in an interview by one of the British MPs, Member of Parliament, John Cruddas. He's one of the most vocal Member of Parliament. Very often you will find his interviews, articles everywhere. And he's a part of the Labour Party, a party which has always been known traditionally, at least that's the way their entire intellectual positioning is, that they work for the working classes. And I think very nicely, I think one aspect that he mentioned, a few years back, he was diagnosed with a life-threatening illness. And he said that when I was diagnosed with this illness, my entire ambition, whatever ambitions that I had in my life, everything evaporated. Because when you confront death, you start to again reevaluate your priorities, you start to rethink what is actually important to you. And all your personal ambitions, career, everything becomes second fiddle. You start thinking about your personal life, you start thinking about what contribution you had towards your family, towards your society, towards your country. And he said that at that point of time, he had watched a short documentary by a Polish director called Talking Heads. It was made in 1980. And this documentary asked only two questions. And this interview was taken across all layers of the society, all sections of the society. Just two questions. First, who are you? And second, what do you want? And this was raw and about the lives that people lived and lives that they wished for. And some of these answers were deeply moving. People at the flag end of their life, when they introspect, when they again try to go back. And they focused on elements of dignity of one's work, which was one of the most important aspects that they focused on, apart from family relationships, sense of responsibility, freedom for fear. And he went on to say that, and his book Dignity of Labor is a very angry book. I've read certain sections of the book, and I think the other aspect which he very nicely explained is he explained about the mighty Ford factory, which was the biggest factory in Europe, and it tells a very profound story about struggle, about deeper contests, about dignity, and a sense of control over your own lives. In this regard, two movies that I remember, very, very interesting. One, of course, the last part that I referred to about the Ford factory, made in Dagenham, 2010 movie. A nostalgic celebration of the famous strike for equal pay by 187 Ford streams in 1968. A warm portrait of feminist awakening, combined with union militancy, etc. And the other, Fish Tank, 2009. The story about a 15-year-old girl attempting to navigate a 21st century world. in which stable work has disappeared and relationships are dysfunctional. So we all want our children to grow into successful, confident, and happy individuals. And there's nothing wrong with it. We want them to have the best of everything. And parents who have worked hard for where they are today, of course, would always want their children to share that part of their lifestyle. Of course, there are some parents who are exceptions. I think Barrett gives some wonderful examples of celebrities, achievers, themselves traveling business class, but ensuring that children understand the value of money, understand the value of careers, children traveling economy. But mostly, if I refer to 99.99%, parents always ensure that the children, gets to share their lifestyle, and even at times maybe better than what they themselves enjoy, of course. But at the same time, however, it is equally important to teach them the value that their privileged lifestyle, really value it, as well as respect those who lead more modest one. Not to look down upon people who have less than they do, or to demean them. People who make their lives easier. So be it the society watchman, be it the cleaning staff, be it the office peon, who may not have a great job, just like their parents, but who really makes lives easier for others. I think if we and our families foster respect for those who make an honest living, no matter how, I think that's the best way to teach our children. So these are some thoughts that I wanted to share. I thank all of you for giving me a patient hearing. We have a wonderful panel here today. And I really look forward to the deliberation in this very important topic. Over to you, Shubhai.
Thank you, Achin. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, as Achin mentioned, we do have a fantastic panel lined up for you. Before we go on to our panel, a little bit about Notebook. We at Notebook are an EdTech product. We create short, crisp videos tailored to the school curriculum. What this means is right from classes 1 through to class 12, for every subject and every topic, you would find a video or more on our web platforms. This includes our website and our mobile apps for Android and iOS. These videos are available both to you teachers in your classroom, and you can play these as an introduction to the topic that you're going to teach. Also, students at home have access to these same videos on their personal devices. Be it a laptop or a smartphone, students can watch these videos over and over again to get a better understanding of a topic. CBSE as a curriculum does a fair bit to inculcate values like equality and dignity amongst our students. A very interesting topic from the class 12 English syllabus is this poem called An Elementary School Classroom in a Slum. It is set in UK, however, tells a very important lesson on how to improve the quality of lives of young children and therefore equalize the society more. Here it is.
He says that governors, inspectors or educationists need to help in reforming the living conditions and the school system in the slum. They can show the children a glimpse of a better world and enable them to aspire towards it. The maps, which have so far proved useless to them, can then become their windows to the vast and fascinating world outside. The windows of their lives have so far remained shut, and they have been incapable of escaping the narrow confines of their lives. With the changing times, the windows will break open. The children will be released from the bondages that hold them back. They will be connected to the world of nature from which they have been deprived for so long. The poet wishes for a time when the children will enter green fields and run free on the golden sands under an azure or clear blue sky. The open skies and the fields symbolize their hard-achieved freedom and the progress they have made. In such a future, the children will read books and avail quality education. They will discover themselves afresh and be empowered through their freedom and education. They will make a mark for themselves and their names will enter the books of history.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a short snippet of one of the Notebook videos. If you go onto our website www.notebook.school or our mobile apps on Android and iOS, you would find more than 10,000 such videos at your disposal that you can use in your classrooms.
He says that governors.
Sorry about that. It is now time for me to introduce the wonderful, wonderful panel that we have with us today. We are privileged to have with us Mrs. Kiran Kaur, who is an educationist as well as a social activist. She has been dedicated in the field of imparting quality education since the last 25 years. Born and brought up in Amritsar, she completed her Masters in Chemistry Honours from GNDU. She did her Masters of Education from Punjab University, Patiala. Her professional experience includes being a science teacher, chemistry lecturer, HOD of Science Department, academic coordinator, CCE in charge, board examination in charge, and head of a school as a principal. She was awarded as a best teacher and honored as a principal. Being the principal, she had an opportunity to create a positive school culture. In addition to various positions in her educational career, she's trained students in various activities like science quiz, seminars, exhibitions, extempore, flower decoration, and for food festivals. She also participated in such activities and brought laurels for the school. Being socially active, she is a member of the JCI Foundation and was honored as Outstanding JCRT and Outstanding Zone Officer at the national level. She is also the member of Rotary Club and Ludhiana Care Ladies Society, where her major contribution is in teaching kids from slum area and tree plantation. She is renowned for her honesty, discipline, hard work, motivation, willingness to strive for education, and enthusiastic nature. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. It's a privilege to have you here. We also have with us Ms. Bipasa Mukherjee, who is the principal of the Amrit Memorial High Secondary School in Mohammadabad, Gauna Mau. She is an enthusiastic educator in CBSE pattern of K-12 school education in pursuance of imparting school education to the age group 3 to 16 in rural areas of Mau district. As part of the process, she had extensive experience in CBSE assessment as assistant head examiner in the subject of social science. For 4 years, as part of the leadership team in Maxwell, which is an Indian MNC. She has initiated 3 projects to be pursued by the marketing department, including PMKVY's Retail Marketing Skill Development under RASCI as Sector Skill Council. She has initiated her career in academic research in social sciences in reputed research institutions like Institute for Development Studies, Kolkata, and School of Women's Studies, Jadavpur University, Kolkata. She is graduate and postgraduate in sociology and MPhil degree in women's studies. She had pursued her personal interest in sociological research in school education for girl child in the midst of Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan. Ma'am, thank you so much for being here today. Privileged to have you here. We also have with us Ms. Deepak Kapoor, who has over 20 years of experience in the field of education. She has done her Masters in English Literature and has passionately taught young, bright minds across the country. Being from a defense background, she has varied and rich experience of teaching in schools all across India. She has been in leadership positions in various schools pan-India. She is the founder member of the Suchitra Academy's leadership team. She was the vice principal of Suchitra Academy and took over the mantle of principal in March 2020. She believes that every child has immense potential to excel given the right environment. She is a strong advocate of the No Child Left Behind policy, whether in academics or other school activities. Ms. Deepa believes that education cannot be imparted within the 4 walls of the classroom. A child has to explore, inquire, and be curious about the world around them. To satiate a curious mind should be the prime role of a teacher. A teacher, according to Ma'am, has to be a learner first, her patience steadfast, and her dedication unparalleled. Under her able guidance, the teachers are encouraged to adapt and adopt new practices that acknowledge both the art and science of learning. They understand that the essence of education is a close relationship between a knowledgeable, caring adult and a secure, motivated child. They grasp that their most important role is to get to know each student as an individual in order to comprehend his or her unique needs, learning style, social and cultural background, interests, and abilities. She believes that with massive revolutions in knowledge, information technology, and with public demand for better learning, this kind of restructuring is imperative. She also believes in keeping herself abreast with the latest trends in education. She has been a part of a few webinars on pertinent topics related to this field. She has also recently completed an online course in school management and leadership from Harvard University. Ma'am, thank you so much for making the time to be here today. It's a privilege to have you on the platform. We also have with us Mr. K. Kalai Selvam, a principal of DMI St. Joseph Global Senior Secondary School, which is in Polivakkam in Thiruvallur, Tamil Nadu. He is a passionate school teacher and a principal with a demonstrated history of working in education for 22 years. He is skilled in curriculum development, public speaking, team building, organization leadership, management with a strong communication and leadership background. He is a strong education professional with a bachelor's degree focused in Tamil language and literature from St. Joseph's College, Trichy, Tamil Nadu. He has done his master's in Tamil, master's in public administration, MSc in psychology from Madras University, and an MPhil in education from Alagappa University. He is a trained counselor in parenting and a renowned speaker on various topics in motivating lectures for the school students, college students, and teachers. He has also been a resource person for the B.Ed students at Mohammed Sadak Padur B.Ed College and IGNOU. He has received a number of awards. Just to name a few, he received a Lifetime Achievement Award in the field of education from RLT Foundation on the Silver Jubilee celebration of Shantiniketan Matriculation Higher Secondary School in Sebakkam, Chennai. He has received a Lifetime Achievement Award in the field of education from the Lions Club International District 3 to 4 AI in 2011 and received the Best Teachers Award from the Lions Club International from the district of 3 to 4 AI in the year 2009. Sir, privileged to have you on the platform. Thank you so much for making the time. I shall start my video now and stop the share so that we can see each other. Once again, a very warm welcome to our platform. It's a privilege to have each one of you here. We are discussing this very important topic, and thank you so much for being part of the discussion today. If I can come to Kiran ma'am first. Ma'am, I will ask a very fundamental question, and so please pardon my ignorance here. How do schools go about teaching this whole concept, dignity of labor? Ma'am, I think you're on mute. Kiran ma'am, if you can hear me.
I'm audible now?
Yes, ma'am, I can hear you now. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for having me on this panel, as well as my complete regards and as well as respect for all the speakers over here. As the topic is dignity of labor, as you have asked for the schools. Although it's a part of curriculum in one or the other way, like in SST, in English, in the stories, everywhere we are teaching all these in one or the other form. But we have to teach them in a different manner. Although it's a part, but how it has to be taught, that makes a lot of difference in our life. Because according to me, work is a power. Well, how we can say that work is the power? Because the labor that should be respected as a labor, it do each and every work. Like if I consider the school is there, every parent want their school to be as clean as it should be. And how it will be done? It is done only with the help of a labor class. Like when we consider that this dignity of labor is a part of the curriculum and it promotes a community, as all the schools, it promotes a community and community that they serve the schools. So it is on both the hand. Children, they have the impressionable minds. I consider them as a kachi mitti. Means that means they can be easily molded by the teachers as well as by the parents. So according to the school, when we consider that first thing, as the sir has also said, that make sure you always practice what you preach. So your actions speak louder than the words. Yes, it's true. Children see and they perform the work as the teachers do, as their administrative they do. So that means we have to lead by an example. We have to be on that way that whenever we interact with the labor class, with the workers in the school, we have to give the respect to them. Like if I consider that I'm going to call them, how do I call them? Like whether I respect them, if they are elder than me, then I can call them with the name. But along with that, that tone, as well as I can use the word B is there if there is a lady, or a bhaiya is there, auntie, uncle, depending upon, because they are the actual caretaker of the school. So we have to shift that mindset, because biggest asset in this world is your mindset, how we perform our duty. No shame in the honesty, living instead of doing the wrong deeds. Because what happens that we do not make our kids to understand the philosophy of the work, whether it is the mental or the physical. Actually, here the labor class, we are considering that they are doing their physical work, but there should not be shame in doing any type of work. Like nowadays, everybody knows that everybody is running after to go abroad, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. What do they do over there? Most of them, they have to do the labor part, but they are not ready to do it, all these things over here. So that the concept which is given by the sir, that there should be summer classes, summer jobs, so that they should enter into that, and they should do the respect all these jobs respectfully. They should not feel ashamed of that. And like one of the example which I felt over there in the New Zealand, when it was my first visit, two students came to our restaurant. My cousin is running a restaurant over there, and at around at about 11 o'clock, and I asked my cousin that now what they are going to do. They came over here to dishwashing, and both these are doing their medicals, and both they are having their respectable parents which are working as a doctors, but still they are working to earn their money as well as to give their fees. So this is actually they teach their kids, which we are unable to do it. Now, modification in curriculum can be done even at the school level, as we know that according to CBSE, integrated subjects are there. In the integrated subjects, when we consider that if a civics teacher is teaching that Labor Day, labor law, these laws are not known by everybody. Even if I consider that even I don't know all these laws, because if I know, I would like to teach these labor class, my workers which are coming at my home. So that these should be taught at such a level that these kids, they can tell their parents how these labor laws, they can be easily helpful for all these persons. Then science teachers, we always teach, being a science teacher, I have taught so many times that recycling is there, that reduce is there, segregation is there. During that segregation, when we sort out the garbage material, what happens? Actually, we are making the garbage person work more easier. But if we do not sort out glass tutkia, what happens? We just simply throw it down in the dustbin. But if I just take any plastic bag, put that broken glasses over there and give it separately to the person, what will happen? That means I am saving that person from hurting with the glass. Because when they pick up or they sort out these things from the garbage, it's very difficult for them to sort out the things. Similarly, as the discrimination of the lower caste was there, but now it is not as that much, but still in some of the part of India it is there. That can be taught by the history teacher. Art classes teachers, they can easily taught the Thanksgiving cards to these person, not only on the Labor Day. We generally celebrate the birthdays of our students, our teachers, principals. Why not these persons? They are equally important for us. Language teachers, they can impart so many things. Like if I consider that importance of the labor class can be best taught by the language teacher, because once we say that what will happen if there is not any labor class, they are on a strike. That means it will give the students to think about up to that magnitude to help them how do these labors, they help us. Because, and this is what actually lockdown has taught us, that without these ayahs and what has happened with us, we have done each and every work with our own hands. And it was not easier at that time because the schools were on. There were so many things to taught to the teachers, to the parents, as well as the household work was there. But at least we came to know that there is nothing shame to do each and any work because it's our own home. I consider that it should be actually started at home only, because teaching and parenting, it always goes side by side. How? Boy and girl, there is a discrimination. There is a husband and wife. Wife can do this thing, but husband cannot do this thing. Why is it so? It should be taught at home that each and everything can be done by whether it is a boy or a girl, and do not insult these people in front of anybody. Because anybody can be wrong. It can be me, it can be anybody else. Even when we consider that if something is done wrong by any other person, we can teach them respectfully that it should not happen again. Or if you can do it in this manner, we can speak to them politely, respectfully. Then when we consider that, that teach them to carry we can consider that, let it be, a worker is there who is cooking the food. If food is served to the kids, Why can't we teach our kids that once you have taken your food, just keep these plates back to the kitchen? They can do it. Why every time that person has to pick up the clothes are clean, they are dried, they are washed, then they are ironed, but at least they can keep them in the cupboards. So that is a helping hand to the others, even to the mother also, because like earlier it was said that Hanji, what's your mother? She is not doing anything. But now a very comfortable word is taken, homemaker. Exactly. The same way I consider all these persons, they are the caretaker of our lives. So we should not feel ashamed. Many times it happened to me also that I have asked the students, what's your father? They feel ashamed of it. That how I will tell. They simply use the word businessman. What type of business? Ma'am, businessman. That's it. Nothing else. They don't tell that because they feel ashamed of. We have to teach these kids that it is parents' hard work. Because of that, they will be able to fund the academic activities. Because if their parents are not working that much hard, hard, then how they will be able to fund the school fees? So a nation cannot be given any importance without the dignity of the labor. But how to teach them with the subject matter as well as then projects can be given to the students. We can take them to the orphanage. We can take them to the working site where the labor is working so that they can talk to them. They can understand the difficulties they are having. Simply a word which was generally used by everyone that this is a self-made man. I don't consider that any person is self-made man. Like even a shopkeeper or even a school owner, they cannot do themselves anything until and unless there is a contribution of so many others. It's a contribution in each and every person due to which a person becomes something. So nothing is self-made. Ultimately, that we are the product of the labor. How? Because all wealth is the product of the labor. Because laborers, they do their work, then we are able to make our houses, we are able to make our schools, we are able to make our offices, and then ultimately laborers, they are helping us to do our work. Although we are not doing any physical work, but we are doing intellectual work with the help of these laborers. So we have to understand this thing. There is a one word in the Africa which is generally used, Ubuntu. That Ubuntu means आपके कारण मैं हूँ. आपके कारण मैं हूँ means अगर आप काम कर रहे हो तो मेरा काम easy हो रहा है. So that's why I am there. So during Corona, we have learned so many these things. Like even if I consider that this Swiggy, Zomato, as well as the cab workers, they are helping us in each and every way. So I consider this labor class as another army. There is an army which is helping us to save us from the others. The same way, this labor class, I can consider them as a green army or any name can be given to them, that they are helping us or they are helping our earth to save from this or they are helping earth to make better place to live on. Like when I consider that some person called that kachra wala has come, basically that person is not a kachra wala. Who is that person? That person is actually spy wala. Kachra to hum bana rahe hain na ghar pe. They are taking away that kachra from our home and they are actually taking care of our home. The same way we consider that complete respect should be given to them. Teachers, parents, everybody should teach them. It's not the duty of only that moral divinity teacher or the class teacher. Let's each and everybody contribute to make this earth a better place with the help of that labor class, and we should not feel ashamed of it. Thank you so much. Thank you for listening, having patience to listen to me.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking us through the various ways. In fact, I am not sure if you saw this, but when you spoke about celebrating the birthdays of your, the staff in your, the non-teaching staff in your school, Mr. Selvam sir was giving you a silent hand.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, sir.
Deepa, ma'am, if I may come to you next, ma'am. I have two questions. One is obviously, how do you teach dignity of labor in your school? The second is, as ma'am was saying, there are two parts to this, right? students also look at their parents behaving in a certain way, be it a waiter at a restaurant or an Uber driver, right? How do you deal with that part where your work is being negated at home?
Absolutely. Yes. So coming to the first part of a question of how, it is taught in my school. So first of all, that, the core values of the school are respect, integrity, excellence. So we follow all of these to the hilt. So when I say respect, it means that, respect of all stakeholders. It's not just to do with just the children respecting the teachers. It has to be the teachers respecting the students, the teachers and the students respecting the class 4 employees in the school, the maids, the drivers. It's only when you inculcate that children will learn any values. The minute they notice that a teacher is possibly not respecting her own colleagues, there is possibly a talk in the staff room and children have overheard something like that. So that also leads to that negative impact on children. So it has to do with all the stakeholders of the school. We hear so many times of parents not respecting the teachers. And, there is a PMI, and then you realize that parents are speaking against the teachers in front of the child. So what kind of an impact does that leave to the child? Also, what Mr. Phillips spoke about earlier of showing gratitude to the workers in the school. So we also do the same, where we have children gifting out certain things to the employees, so that they feel that they are the ones who actually take care of them, especially the little ones, where you have the maids always with them, always helping out, the bus maids who are there, who are helping out the children all the time. So a gratitude shown to them in some way or the other. The second area, what you spoke about of how, we build this gap of what happens at home. I totally agree with that, that it cannot be just the school's prerogative to inculcate this aspect in the students. It definitely comes from home. The home and the parents are the first teachers. And children are a reflection of what their parents are. That's 100% so. So if a child sees, a parent possibly disrespecting a maid at home, disrespecting their own possibly, the mother, the father is disrespecting the mother. So what are the children learning from that? So it definitely goes hand in hand, that how is it that the house help is respected at home? Do the children see that, some kind of, there has to be that parents are teaching the students compassion, their children compassion. So each and every aspect of this helps children to grow into mindful citizens. We see this example of schools in Japan, where they are taught dignity of labor, where children clean their own classrooms. I mean, it's such a brilliant and such a heartwarming example when you see children with mops and dusters and, cleaning their schools. They clean their own washrooms too, right? So, I mean, how better else can you teach children than, teaching them by doing? We have the same concept in school. I mean, I'm talking about in the normal scenario, not in the virtual, where we had children cleaning their own classrooms at the end of a week. And I remember I had this parent who came and actually fought in the school to say that, how can you make my child do that? So can you imagine, I mean, what are you teaching your child then? If you are not able to teach the child that dignity of labor, that at least the child should be able to do their own jobs, their own little, little jobs that they have. Maybe they are helping their mothers at home. They're not just kicking their shoes as soon as they enter their rooms. They are doing their own little jobs of putting their uniforms in place, their bags in place, organizing for their own day. That is, they are ironing their own uniform, maybe helping the mother in the kitchen for some time. If you're not teaching these basic things to children, and if the school is helping you out, teach the child a bit, then what is the harm? So it has to be a two-way effort. The parents have to teach as much as the school has to teach. Also, a very good example that I remembered when Mr. Achin was speaking was what Mahatma Gandhi said in the Experiments with Truth, where he says, when I spin, I have actually earned my day's food. He said that. So when we come from such a culture of, that you have to earn your own livelihood, then that is the job of the parent and the teachers both. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ma'am, for taking us through that. Bipasa, ma'am, if I may come to you next. Ma'am, I would have to fall back on your specialty with development studies and ask you a question that is perhaps the underpinning of this entire, requirement to have dignity of labor. Uh, we are looking at a generation right now who are woke. Urban kids like to think of themselves as late and being politically correct, etc. has come in. It's set in. Is it the same at the other end of the spectrum as well? Because feeling a lack of dignity in actually being the person performing the labor is something that has been passed down through generations. Do you think that at the other end of the spectrum, the person who's feeling the indignity of being a laborer is also perhaps doing it more automatically than is being done by external stimuli? Ma'am, you're on mute. And sorry if that's a little too complicated. It got a bit complicated in my head for sure.
Yes. Uh, uh, can you just explain, more clear what you
Yeah,
actually
yeah.
want to put?
I definitely should.
When you're saying the other end, whom you are actually considering the other end? When you
Right, ma'am.
are putting the rich or the middle or upper middle rich section vis-a-vis the poor section, are you
Ma'am,
actually?
not really, going through the tiers as such, but here's a scenario, right? Affluent family walks into a restaurant. The father treats the waiter badly. The son, who's 16 years old, calls out the father and says, listen, you can't do this. You can't do this to a waiter just because you think you're rich. That change is slowly happening in society thanks to schools like yours. And what I mean by the other end is the son of that waiter, does he, in growing up, feel that shame in saying that my father is a waiter automatically? Or has it been caused by people saying that, listen, you must be ashamed because your father is a waiter?
Uh, I think there isn't a havoc change in the mentality to seeing the labor of the blue collar jobs by both all the scenarios, whether they're from perspective of the rich kid or the rich family, or from the perspective of the poor family, and there is a throw or a thrust into achieve whatever you on individual level, because it might many of the time it was shown as or seen by the in the today's generation as a generation gap, but they are trying to work on their own and try to make an identity of their own, and not to get the hereditary or a legacy in that way. Okay, they might credit to the achievement, the self-development individual level to their forefathers, father, grandfather, mother, but there is definitely a trust to have a identifying the own scenarios. Where I'm living past 5 years is absolutely a rural area. And here the boys and girls are actively participating in the agricultural labor, and they are coming to the CBSE wearing uniform, ties, having full through spoken English, morning assembly, going through every CCA activity and achieving over national and sometimes they're going international levels for sports and everything. So they have a complete exposure. And I have been to visited so many students who do their avid agricultural job. And they're very proud students to be in the science streams, doing songs, dance, and there's no bar affectation in the classroom. Actually, the ground reality is that in the classroom, there is no class distinction. The side by side, they are sitting aside, and that is a wonderful experience for my side. That once the first Philippe sir just say that the students are just not tarnished with this class distinction and all. So they have no issues, and they really do projects their personal lives in their making food making. Culinary dishes from starting from searching over and the sharing. They not access the receipts of the distant land or the Western receipts or the Chinese delicacies. So they're merging their own regional with the others, and some students have access of these things. So they're merging and they're living their life. So there is no that in the ground reality there is not there. And but as Deepa ma'am just said that we do really see the scenarios from the affluent people, mothers or parents, I will say mothers, who are the homemaker, but they have no idea, definitely they have no idea what is the actually earning money, running the household, giving the financial support, and they many times they try to inculcate that reflections do inculcate. They are misbehaving in front of the teachers or the school system. Actually, everything is a part of a huge labor. And teachers, as we are here, or mostly they are teachers, but I don't agree with that. We are absolutely intellectual service provider. Our students are seeing with us, and specifically if you are pursuing a CBC curriculum in true sense, you have to be a very, very active physically. We are principal to the non-teaching staff like peon, dai, chaprasi, everyone. So everyone, and we're gardeners. So we are going through the gardener. Gardener helps us to locate what is the species over there. So there is it is a larger family in the school. But the narrow scape is sometimes for some of the upper middle class we can see. But where I'm here, we are from absolutely 80% business, where the students are also partly helping the parents or the father establishments, doing homework while traveling for 5 kilometers because they don't have time in their evening hours. So they're doing homework during the bus ride and coming and giving. So actually, we don't have that much of a problem to inculcate the sense of labor, doing own work. We don't have that much. They're so enthusiastic coming back to school that they have got their own personal life. And so it was a wonderful experience in that regard.
Wonderful, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you so much for that. In fact, I think 130 episodes, our learning has been that entitlement is a much bigger problem in education than poverty will ever be. Uh, Mr. Selvam, if I may come to you, sir, thank you so much for waiting patiently. I know it's been a long wait. Sir, couple of questions. One is, how are you teaching dignity of labor in your school, obviously? But second, more importantly, sir, to today's online world, students are exposed to so much of our, disrespectful behavior online. How do you see that in terms of dignity of labor understanding?
Um, a very good evening to all of you. Am I audible, sir?
Yes, sir, perfectly.
Thanks for the opportunity to speak in front of all these respectable people. I belong to Tamil Nadu, and probably many of you are aware that we have, as Mr. Phillips said, we have this caste problem is at a higher rate in our state. However, the school where I am, it is I don't say it is an urban school, it's a semi-urban school, but housing most of the very poor strata people. But what we are trying to do with the children, as you rightly asked, with the online, the children are going way ahead, and obviously they learn what they are not supposed to. But when I go through our children and when I meet the parents, we do have some online contact with the parents. And just now this afternoon, we had offline, I had some about 50 parents coming together just to discuss my senior students, how to go about, because they have just come back to the school for the last 15, 20 days now. We are trying to handhold them. What I found is totally they are off the track. And obviously, I think most of the principals who are available here and the listeners, they will agree with me because they had been off the track for about more than 1.75 years. But nonetheless, the concept of dignity of labor, we try to inculcate in them because though they are coming from a very poor family, I understand and I vouch say here that they have a fantastic respect towards each other, especially our, the non-teaching. We have taught them to call them sister. Each one of them. They don't call Aya. In our term here in Tamil Nadu, they consider them as Aya. Aya means menial labor, the sweeper or something. But we have taught our children that they also take their hand and say namaste to even our so-called sisters. So that attitude, I find it is really heartwarming, and they do it very sincerely. The same respect they give to the teachers, and I am so very happy. Since as Madam was talking about, respecting all the non-teaching, we have such things. That's why I was able to, connect quickly. We have a lot of days that we sit together, eat together, and first time when I went with my food, with my non-teaching, they couldn't believe and they couldn't accept. None of them would sit down. I said, "Come on, let's sit down and then have our food. What's it? What's the problem?" So even I was ready to even share. I'm not trying to speculate. This is the truth of what we are going through, and I feel it is. I strongly feel children are so very good. In spite of what they learn all the so-called disrespectful things from online. But if teachers with sort of kindness, if we are able to inculcate or tell them or handhold them with all these ideas, like the dignity of labor, I would say that it will be 100% success, irrespective of whether it is a CBSE school or matriculation school or the government school. I consider children as children. What we need exactly in one line, if you ask me, I will say it's a mindset change. You have to have a mindset shift. If you have that, as another panelist said, it is what we do, what they ape. Children are just, they are trying to ape. If we are going to be kind, good, and respectful, and I'm sure this is very easy that we can teach them. I don't think we need to have a set of curriculum. If we have a set of curriculum, it will be taken as only curriculum, not an experience. I would say, as somebody else said, we have field trips. We take them to different factories, because I'm surrounded by so many factories. I do strike a word with HRs, and I take my children down the line, go and see how this the factories run. So children knows how difficult their parents are, how they are taking, they are earning money and so on. To add one more thing, I don't think any principals will say, but we face the problem of, children, parents paying the fees back. Now I find meeting the parents at home, I do visit home. When I see the parents, they feel ashamed to even say, excuse me, shall I pay the fees after some time? I said, you don't have to be ashamed. The so-called, huge, people, they have come to the roads with Corona. And today, I think I would like to salute Corona because it has taught us fantastic things, values that otherwise we would not have learned. And honestly speaking, for more than a year, I had been a fantastic husband to my wife. Doing excellent works, in par with, or even trying to excel my wife, cooking and things like that. I don't feel ashamed to say. Otherwise, you just get ready in the morning, take your car and go to the school, and you are like a principal. You have two horns. Now I have learned, no, you got to be right on the road, right on just on the earth. Don't fly high. So I think I have learned personally, and I'm sure because of that kind of learning, and some of my elders who had been handholding me for a long time. I still remember the very first day when I took over the school as a principal. In fact, I started the school with the request of management in Trichy. Where the first day when I was just asking, as somebody said, what you would like to be in future. This is a common question when we meet the students for the first time. It's a stylish way of asking, most of us teachers and do. I did ask the question. This first boy is the first child to join the school. I still remember the name Sivakumar. He just got up and wouldn't answer me. I said, what happened? I spoke to him in Tamil, by the way. And he said, no, sir, and started shedding tears. I said, what happened? He happened to be Dobie's son. And the other boy said he's a Dobie's son, so he would like to be a Dobie. You understand? Washerman. I said, that is terribly bad. Hooray. In Tamil we say, poi sollade, piche edukade, thirudade. Don't steal, don't beg, and don't act smart. You can do any work, and that is respectable. So from that day, today he's a big politician in the state. This particular boy, believe me, he is doing excellently well, and he has come over, from that attitude that he is a Dobie son. Today he is a leader, a leader who is leading fantastic, and he is doing a lot of things to the people of the place. So with that, I think I have spoken enough. I would like to conclude. Let us have a mindset shift. If we do that, everything will be fantastic. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. Well, I wish we could do one more round, but unfortunately, we've run out of time. It's almost 6:30, and we'll draw to a close. I'll just take a leaf out of Kiran ma'am's book. Ma'am, you had referred to an African term called Ubuntu much earlier. Because we were talking about dignity of labor, thought we could close with an anecdote on laborers. So the Kenyan national emblem has a word at the bottom that says Harambe. Harambe is a Swahili word. It typically means all together. The origin of the word, however, is very interesting. When the railroad in Kenya was being built, when Kenya was a British country, India was also a British colony. So Indian laborers were taken over to Kenya to build the railroad. And the Punjabi and the Gujarati laborers who would be pulling the big logs would basically say Har Har Ambe, which is an incantation to Ambe Mata. So Har Har Ambe became Harambe, which today finds its place of pride on the Kenyan national flag and the Kenyan national emblem. That's where laborers have taken us.
Yes.
To all of you, thank you. Thank you so much. It's been an enlightening session for me. I would now request Achin to come and do the official vote of thanks. Achin, you have quite a bit to thank for, so over to you.
Can I just interrupt?
Yes,
I would
please.
like to read a quote from Rabindranath Tagore, where he spoke about education cannot be separated from physical labor for cultural reawakening. Every student must participate in some programs of service to the mankind by coming out of the sphere of this particular community. Work should be taken as a medium of education because experiences are the windows of our brain. I think it is very poignant.
Thank you so much for that, ma'am. Achin, it's now added to your load to thank her.
So I think really wonderful session, I think very seamless session, and great to see so many, the way the whole issue was looked at very holistically. But sir, thank you so much for giving us a great start. And I think also your unique take on the whole issue, which later point of time our other esteemed panelists also elaborated on that. Some wonderful experiences from your school, from the society around us, from your own life. So much to learn from you, sir. So really, indeed, we are thankful to you. We stand enriched with your experience. Thank you so much. Kiran ma'am, sincerely thank you for being a part of this August panel, for gracing the platform. I think very mature and very mature take, like the way when you're speaking, I could have easily relate to it. And I think there's some wonderful examples you gave, very holistic. And of course, to conclude, Gurudev Rabindranath Tagore's quote, very, very beautiful quote, very appropriate. And thank you so much, ma'am, for that. Deepa ma'am, indeed, thank you so much. I think mutual respect that you spoke of is something very important. And also, I think one thing is very correct, that parents respecting teachers, it's so important. The way discussions are held at home, that's where a child actually learns. Especially in today's age when online classes are being conducted for more than a year now. And when parents have stepped into the shoes of educators, at least up to some extent, to try and ensure that things are in order, especially for children in primary classes, juniors, etc., who really need help to connect to Zoom lessons, etc. So I think it's really important to ensure that the kind of discussions, the kind of comments that parents pass in front of children, I think that goes a long way. And also the mutual respect, the whole thing that we were discussing about, because the entire triangle of parents, teachers, and students, it's so important. And the child stands enriched, the child stands benefited. There's seamless chemistry, great understanding between parents and teachers. So to that extent, really, it's really important to have this mutual respect. And of course, the child learns from home what he or she sees at home. It's one of the most, so we were discussing that today's children don't really shy from calling us if they see that we are not practicing what we're preaching. So I think they'll be very upfront about it. Selvam sir, I thank you so much. I think very nicely you mentioned about the way children calling the support staff like as sisters, namaste. These are small things, but so important in the whole upbringing process. These are values that, of course, children deeply ingrained. Children, these are treasures for life, I believe. And also, great to know that during last 1.5 years, how you have been an excellent husband and how you have really helped your better half with household food. It's something to be really proud of, I believe. Really, something to be feel very happy to know this. I think this is, in spite of all the miseries that we have seen during last 1.5 years, so many people suffering, people losing their jobs, losing their loved ones. But at least the only positive side of this entire thing is I see families spending more time together, and understanding the joy, the beauty of small things in life, the small beauties, the small joys that our parents and grandparents lived with. I think those things coming back and we realizing how little we actually need in order to be happy. I think that is one of the prime takeaways. Thank you so much, sir, indeed, for this. Our pleasure. Bipasa ma'am, I thank you. I think you very rightly, appropriately mentioned the importance of blue collar jobs and the entire changing social perspective. Yes, it is changing. There is a sea of change, and we all feel that, and it's changing in the right direction, and that's what is required. And also great to know that within the classroom, as you rightly mentioned, there is no inhibition, there is no discrimination. Of course, discrimination is a very strong word, and we firmly believe that there is no discrimination. But at least there's no inhibition. Children are opening up, participating. That is so important. I think so. Overall, great session. Some excellent takeaways for our esteemed educators, and I'm sure members of the audience really thoroughly enjoyed this session. Took some great notes. I sincerely thank all of you for being a part of this, and look forward to see you in the future sessions as well. Thank you. Take care, and goodbye. Thank you. Thank you.
so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.